Hello ladies and gentlemen, Tevaron here, and welcome to some more Magic the Gathering Arena. This video we're going to be opening some packs. They have finally instituted the real money economy into the game, so I went ahead and dropped $100. Hopefully we don't have to drop much more than that to get some decent cards, and hopefully we'll trigger our vault opening several times, but I've started off with 45 Dominaria packs, which is the new set. The game gave me 3 when I entered, so let's start opening what we get, and how many times this pops and so on and so forth will dictate where we go with the rest of our gems. Alright, thought the game was going to lock up there for a second, so we got an uncommon wild card, and Jasu Vess, Lich Knight. This is a very interesting card, one that I think may actually be constructed playable. It's 2 and a black for a 4/5 with Menace, for a kicker of 5 and black, so 10 mana total. When he comes into play, you can put out 8 2/2 black Zombie Knight creature tokens with Menace. So basically, as a 4-drop, he's a 4/5 with Menace, and as a 10-drop, it's 20 power worth of Menace onto the board. Pretty insane. Not going to really worry about the commons and uncommons. If you want to read those as we go along, just feel free to pause the video and do that. Alright, I like these memorial lands too. I think the blue one is the best of them. It's sacrificed to draw 2 cards. And then we got Goblin Chain Whirler. 3 mana for a 3/3 first striker. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. Very strong, aggressive creature. On Sarah's Wings is busted and limited, I will tell you that. And sealed or draft, it's ridiculous. Build your own Baneslayer Angel. Fall of the Thran. This is a rare that I'm not super excited about. The sagas are new in Dominaria. How they work is, as you can see up there in the reminder text, as the saga enters and after you draw your card, basically at the beginning of your first main phase, you add a lore counter to it, and then you sacrifice it after 3. It does something in each of the chapters. So for when we first play this, it'll destroy all lands, ours and our opponent. Then the next turn, at the beginning of our main phase, each player returns 2 land cards from their graveyard to the battlefield, and the third part is exactly the same. If this was just straight up Armageddon, destroy all lands for 4 with nothing else, it would be very insane. But they haven't printed Armageddon in a long time, and I don't think that this lives up to that card. Alright, got a common wild card. Hinterland Harbor. Yes, please. I want all of the dual lands. So this is the completion of the cycle from Ixalan. These lands have been printed before, but only in Innistrad, the enemy color ones. So it's great to get a reprint on those. Now we've got all 10 of them in standard. Chainer's Torment. Okay, that's a interesting saga too. I feel mixed about this. I know a lot of people I've seen draft the set say that it's pretty good, at least in limited. So the first chapter is it deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. Now you don't gain 2 life for each opponent that takes damage, you just straight up gain 2. So if you're playing multiplayer, it doesn't scale quite as well as you would like. But it does that the first 2 times, and then for the third activation, create an XX Black Nightmare Horror creature token, where X is half your life total rounded up. It deals X damage to you, so it makes a massive creature but takes half your life away. If they've got removal, that's real bad. If they don't, it's real good. Demon Lord Belzenlock. This is a creature I think that is pretty good. 6 mana for a 6/6 flying trample is good on its own. But also, when Demon Lord Belzenlock enters the battlefield, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card, then put that card into your hand. If the card's converted mana cost is 4 or greater, repeat this process. Demon Lord Belzenlock deals 1 damage to you for each card put into your hand this way. so you're going to draw at least one non-land card off of it, and perhaps more, just depending on what their cost is. Now, it could kill you, sure, if you draw too many and your life total's too low, but overall, I think Demon Lord Belzenlock is a great control creature. Alright, Cast Down is a very good removal spell, just depending on how prevalent legendary creatures are in the format. For 2 mana and instant, destroy target non-legendary creature. And Shali, however you pronounce her name, Voice of Plenty, a 4 mana 3/4 angel with flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. So basically you and everything that you have except for her has hexproof. Then for 4 and 2 green, you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. The hexproof is super interesting. I'm not sure how constructed playable Shali is, but she's definitely very good and limited. Alright, Song of Freyalise has been something that has impressed me. I had this in one of my pre-release pulls over last weekend, and it was insane. For 1 and a green, we have a Saga. The first and second activations give all our creatures the Birds of Paradise ability. We can tap them to add any color of mana to our mana pool. And the third activation is put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain Vigilance, Trample, Indestructible until end of turn. Very powerful card. Marwyn the Nurturer. This is one I'm not real sure about. For 2 and a green, we have a 1/1 legendary elf druid. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Marwyn the Nurturer. Tap, add an amount of green equal to Marwyn's power. It's sort of a reverse Elvish Archdruid. So instead of her making all your elves bigger when you play her, they make her bigger when you play them. I think Elvish Archdruid is a better card overall, but we shall see how things shake out with her. Alright, no interesting uncommons showing here. Another Marwyn. That is a little disappointing to me. What are we going to get for our first mythic, I wonder? 2 wild cards, that's awesome. I would much rather get wild cards than just actual cards, so we can just craft what we want. Alright, our first legendary sorcery, Karn's Temporal Sundering. For 4 and 2 blue, we have a legendary sorcery. Target player takes an extra turn after this one, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, exile Karn's Temporary Sundering. Or Temporal Sundering, not temporary. I think I said temporary several times there. As you can see in the reminder text up there popping up beside it, you can only cast a legendary sorcery if you control a legendary creature or a planeswalker, so there is a very big cost to including these in your deck. And how easily you're going to be able to achieve the ability to cast these legendary sorceries is going to dictate how good they are, because they're all very powerful in their own right. It's just how often are we going to actually be able to achieve a board state that's going to allow us to cast one of these legendary spells? I don't know, so that remains to be seen. Ooh, another Song of Freyalise, that's nice. We got Torgar, Famine Incarnate. Yeah, he's okay. 6 and 2 black for a 7/6 legendary creature avatar. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. When Torgar, Famine Incarnate enters the battlefield, up to 1 target player's life total becomes half their starting life total, rounded down. So if you're below 10, you can reset your life total to 10. If your opponent's above 10, you can set their life total to 10. It's okay. I mean, I could see this being played. It's not a creature that I would actively choose to put in a deck, but I may be very wrong about that. So we shall see as time goes on. Alright, more memorials. Ooh, a rare wild card. That is nice. Would like to see more of those, please. Alright. Ooh, another Joshua Vess. Not too upset about getting a second one of those. I would like to get some mythics, though, please. Game. Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle. This card is very combo-rific. The thing is, I'm not sure if Standard has the stuff to combo with this without Kaladesh, which isn't in the game. Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle is 3 and a white for a 2/2 flyer when you cast a Historic spell, and Historic's new with this set. I mean, the cards that are calling Historic for the most part are not new, but now we're calling any legendary card, artifact, or saga enchantment card Historic. So whenever you cast one of those, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So yeah, you can do a lot of neat things with this. It is very vulnerable, it's a very small body, but I would love to see someone break this and make a awesome combo deck, because that would be hilarious and fun. We got another Goblin Chain Whirler. Why are we getting repeats when we haven't got all of them yet? Well, that's the nature of randomness, isn't it? Siege Gang Commander, reprint from an old set. For 3 and 2 red, we have a 2/2 Goblin. When Siege Gang Commander enters the battlefield, create 3/1/1 red Goblin creature tokens. You can pay 1 in a red and sacrifice a Goblin, and Siege Gang Commander deals 2 damage to any target. I'm not sure that we have what it's going to take to make a Goblin deck in Standard. There were definitely Goblin decks many years ago in Standard, and in Old Extended, a format that is no longer around. And even occasionally, Goblin decks put up results in Legacy, but whether they can make a showing in Standard, I'm not going to conjecture about that at present. Siege Gang Commander, though, very sweet reprint. Alright, love the wild cards, keep giving them to me. Oh baby, that's one that I wanted. Our first mythic, and it's definitely one I'm happy to get. Lyra Dawnbringer, Baneslayer Reborn. For 3 and 2 white, we have a 5/5 legendary angel with flying, first strike, and lifelink. Also, other angels you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. Not really sure that the other angels part of her text is super relevant, but on her own, she is an absolute house that I am super excited to try to play with. Welcome to the fold, Lyra. We've got the uncommon legendary Leviathan here, who is not great. 8 mana is a lot of mana, and 10 mana is even more. Then our rare, a third Chain Whirler. Why are you trying to force me into mono red so heavily, game? You gave me Haphazard initially in my very first vault opening, and now you've given me 3 Chain Whirlers. Why? I don't like playing red. It is definitely not my style. I mean, I'll play it, sure, but I prefer other things. Another Teshar's Apostle. All the repeats, friends. Ooh, a mythic rare wildcard. Thank you. Please give me more of those. I don't know the percentage chances of getting the wild cards. Jaya's Emulating Inferno, another legendary sorcery. Again, how good these are is going to depend on how likely it is that you can get into a board state and actually be able to cast them. For 2 red and X, Jaya's Emulating Inferno deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. Very, very powerful card. Again, how likely it is for you to have a legendary out and have it live to where you can untap and actually cast this, I don't know. If you can do it, sweet. If not, eh. Ooh, we just triggered our vault. I guess it's giving us carryover percentage, so I'm guessing that it will keep our percentages going forward if we don't pop it, but we'll pop it after this pack. Oh, Precognition Field. This is not a rare I'm excited about. For 3 and a blue, we have an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library. You may cast the top card of your library. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you can pay 3 and exile the top card of your library. I mean, it's pseudo card draw, but it's kind of expensive and slow. This could find its way into a control deck, though I'm not going to hold my breath. So let's go ahead and pop our vault, shall we? They have redone the vault, and I'm much happier with this configuration. So we get 3 uncommon wild cards, 2 rare cards, 2 rare wild cards rather, and a rare, or a mythic rare wild card. Yeah, I'm a whole lot happier with that than the way they were doing them previously. Let's jump back in there, shall we? Alright, all of these multicolored legend uncommons are also fairly strong too. I'm not sure how constructed playable they are, but they're absolutely awesome in draft and sealed. Garna here, for instance, is a 5-drop 3/3 with flash. When she enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn, and also gives other creatures you control haste, which is pretty good. And then our rare is Benelish Marshal. This is another of the cycle of 3 of a certain color, so 3 white. Goblin Chain Whirler was 3 red. This one's a 3/3, and other creatures you control get +1/+1. All of these are pretty strong. Verax Bladewing. Verax Bladewing is a 4/4 flying legendary dragon for 4 with a kicker of 3. When Verax Bladewing enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create Carax Bladewing, a legendary 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So this is a good card. For 4 you have a 4/4 flyer, and for 7 you have 2 4/4 flyers. It harkens back to Broodmate Dragon. The problem being with this is that it's competing with Haphazard and Rekindling Phoenix, which I think are better than it. In any other standard, I think Verax would have a chance, but at least until Haphazard rotates, I don't think Verax is going to have much of a shot in being in any of the red decks. Maybe he gets the nod in a red-greenish ramp style deck, but we don't know if that's going to be a thing. Definitely something to keep in mind going forward, though. Alright, more wild cards. Thank you very much. And a rare wild card, too. Awesome. Daring Archaeologist, harkening back to Argivian Archaeologist. 3 and a white for a 3/3 human artificer. When Daring Archaeologist enters the battlefield, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever you cast a historic spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Daring Archaeologist. I think it's fine. If there's a deck that's going to be casting a lot of historic spells, many of them being artifacts, I think Daring Archaeologist could be very good in that. Not something I'm super excited about. Nostalgia, though, we've got Skizzik here, which is downshifted from rare. Its original printing was rare. For 3 and a red, we have a 5/3 with Trample and Haste. The kicker is 1 red. At the beginning of your end step, if Skizzik wasn't kicked, sacrifice it. So you have a Pseudo Ball Lightning, or you have something that sticks around if you pay 1 more mana. Was very exciting back in the day, less so now. And a 3rd Marwyn. I hate you, game. Lich's Mastery. This is something that brewers are going to love. It's a upgraded version of the alpha card, Lich. And it's better in every way except for casting cost. So for 3 and 3 black, we have a hexproof legendary enchantment, so your opponent's not going to be able to remove it with targeted removal. You can't lose the game. That's a pretty powerful line of text. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. Whenever you lose life, for each 1 life you lost, exile a permanent you control or a card from your hand or graveyard. When Lich's Mastery leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So basically, when it comes to the point that you've taken enough damage that you have to exile the Mastery itself, you'll lose the game. It's a very interesting card that I have no idea of its efficacy. I know the original Lich never was that good a card, but maybe this could be something. Again, as I said, something to brew with. We have the First Eruption, which is a saga I don't think is very good at all. So for 2 and a red, we have a saga. The first chapter is it deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. The second is you add 2 red to your mana pool. And the third is sacrifice a mountain. If you do, the First Eruption deals 3 damage to each creature. Now, it's kind of confusing on the end there. It says if. The thing is, if you have a mountain, you've got to sacrifice it when this comes up. The if is if you don't have a mountain to sacrifice. So that's why that's in there. Again, I don't think the First Eruption is very good at all. Ooh, another cast down, that's nice. And another rare wild card, even nicer. Another Skizzik, another Garna, and another Lich's Mastery. Okay, game. Feels like you're having a giggle with us. Ooh, Sulphur Falls, though. We'll definitely take that. I would gladly take all the dual lands. Thank you very much. And another rare wild card. Awesome. And Khazarov Singir Pureblood. This is a card I think that is purely a limited bomb, so in draft or sealed, you're going to play this 95% of the time. Probably never going to play it in constructed. It's a 7 mana 4/4 flyer. Whenever a creature an opponent controls is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on Khazarov. For 3 and a red, Khazarov deals 2 damage to target creature. I mean, it's very powerful, but it's also very expensive, and I don't think that its power level is equal to its expense. Thran Temporal Gateway. For 4, we have a legendary artifact. For 4 and tap it, you may put a historic permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Again, this is another very brewer-ific card. Quicksilver Amulet is a card that has been in the game for a while, and something that people have brewed with and was never very good. I guess this is a bit more flexible than that. I don't really see this being something that's competitive, but you never know. That card right there, in Bolus's Clutches, is ridiculous and limited. Maybe even good enough for constructed. It's a twist on Confiscate. For 4 and 2 blue, we have a legendary enchantment. Enchant permanent, you control enchanted permanent. Enchanted permanent is legendary, so still their best thing. The Antiquities War is another thing that's getting a lot of attention. I don't know that it will be good, especially on Arena, where we don't have Kaladesh, which was the heaviest artifact-centric block that's in Standard right now. But for 4 mana, we have a Saga. The first and second chapters both are look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. The third part is what really gives it the gas. Artifacts you control become artifact creatures with base power and toughness 5/5 until end of turn. So basically a 1-turn March of the Machines that tutors you up some artifacts. In the meantime, again, I don't know the efficacy of this card, but it's something that's very fun to consider and may actually be competitive in its own right. Another Shally or Shaley. Shalai. I will never be able to pronounce her name correctly. Right, the Eldest Reborn is an interesting saga. One that I think is actually pretty good and maybe constructed playable. For 4 and a black, we have a saga, of course. The first chapter is each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. The second is each opponent discards a card. And the third is put target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, so you can reanimate your opponent's things as well. Very, very interesting. Nabon, Dean of Iteration. For 1 and a blue, we have a 2/1 legendary human wizard. If a wizard entering the battlefield under your control causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. A very interesting card that I'm not sure is going to be good enough, though if a wizard deck is a thing, you probably want some number of Nabon in it. Maybe. It is worth noting that the trigger can be the actual creature's trigger itself, because it is a permanent. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this. It's an interesting effect, but not on Arena, but in Standard, there is an artifact called Panharmonicon that has seen sporadic play, so I don't know that Nabon is better than that. Again, judgment withheld for the moment. Another Nabon. I feel the same about you now as the very first time we saw you, sir. Urza's Ruinous Blast, another legendary sorcery. Again, the same as with all the others. It's very powerful, but I don't know how easy it's going to be able to cast this, or even in this one's case, how prevalent other legendary cards are going to be, because this is a 5-cost legendary sorcery. Exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. If your opponent has a profusion of legendaries, this does nothing. So, yeah, not real sure about Urza's Ruinous Blast. Gren the Lonely King, however, is a monstrous guy. He is 6 mana, so he's quite expensive, but he's a 5/5, and if he was kicked, he enters the battlefield with 5+1/+1 counters on him, and whenever he attacks alone, double his power and toughness until end of turn. I could see Grun being played in some number in a ramp deck. Whether that's going to be a thing or not, who knows. Another mythic rare wildcard. Awesome. And we got a 4th Marwyn. That is a playset of Marwyn. A card that I am not super excited about. Thank you, game, for rewarding me with 4 Marwyn the Nurturer. We got Joda, Archmage Eternal. Jeskai color legendary creature human wizard. For 1, a blue, a red, and a white, we have a 4/3 with flying. You may pay 1 of each color rather than pay the mana cost for spells that you cast. I don't think Joda's very good. If there were an easy way to generate 1 of each color, then sure. But I don't think there is, so yeah. Not real excited about Joda, Archmage Eternal. Wizard's Retort, on the other hand, is a card that harkens back to Counterspell. 1 and 2 blue to counter target spell, or if you control a wizard, it only costs 2 blue. Again, the same with the legendary spells. How good this card is going to depend on how often you can trigger its cost reduction. There is also a wizard's version of Lightning Bolt in this set. It's 2 and a red for 3 damage, or if you control a wizard, then just 1 red for 3 damage. Alright, I will take all the wild cards, thank you very much. And Primeval's Glorious Rebirth for 5, a white, and a black. Legendary Sorcery. Return all legendary permanent cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, if this wasn't a legendary sorcery, I would say it's pretty good. But it has the same caveat that all the other legendary sorceries have. How easy is it going to be to refill the legendary requirement to play it? I don't know. Fight Fire with Fire is something that's interesting though. This is a card that harkens back to Urza's Rage. For 2 and a red, we have a sorcery that deals 5 damage to target creature. Its kicker is 5 and a red, so for 9 mana total, it deals 10 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets instead. So if you kick it, it can hit planeswalkers, it can hit players, it can hit creatures and wipe the board. I'm not sure that this card is playable. Urza's Rage was back in the day, even being more expensive than this, but it was also an instant, and that was also a time when Magic was a little less powerful overall creature-wise, so I don't know. Definitely a very good card in Limited, though. Starting to get repeats. I think when you get cards that you already have a playset of, it gives additional percentage to your vault. I hope that's the case. Another Jaya's Immolating Inferno, sure. And a rare wild card, awesome. And another Kazarov, not so awesome. Mishra's Self-Replicator. This is another thing I'm not super excited about. For 5, we have a 2/2 Assembly Worker. Whenever you cast a historic spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a token that's a copy of Mishra's Self-Replicator. It is worth noting that the copies can also make copies, so if you can manage to survive to the point that you can start just making massive numbers of these, then sure. I just don't think that's going to be a thing. One thing to look at here, though, Knight of Malice is a callback to Black Knight. There's also a white version of it, which is a callback to White Knight. For 1 and a black, we have a 2/2 Human Knight with First Strike and Hexproof from white, so it can't be the target of white spells or abilities your opponents control. It's a fixed version of Protection, which is no longer put on cards anymore. The original Black Knight was Protection from white, which meant that it couldn't be targeted by white spells or abilities, and it also couldn't be blocked by white creatures. So this is a much better version of that, a much fairer version, I guess you could say. And Knight of Malice gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a white permanent. That includes yourself. The white version of this is just the exact mirror image. Hexproof from black gets +1/+0 for black permanents. And that is all of our packs. I think we're going to jump back in and grab some more Dominaria. There are still a lot of cards in this set that I would like to get. I would also like to pop our vault at least one more time. Alright, got Forebearer's Blade, a 3-cost equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 and has Vigilance and Trample. Whenever equipped creature dies, attach Forebearer's Blade to target creature you control. This is an okay equipment. I don't know that it is constructed playable, but it's definitely on the verge, and maybe it will see some play. Haphazard Bombardment. This is a weird card. For 5 and a red, we have an enchantment. When Haphazard Bombardment enters the battlefield, choose 4 non-enchantment permanents you don't control and put an aim counter on each of them. At the beginning of your end step, if 2 or more permanents you don't control have an aim counter on them, destroy one of those permanents at random. So basically, over the course of 4 turns, you're going to kill 3 of the 4 things you target. I don't think this card's very good, but it's definitely very random. So maybe if you're just into chaos, you can play this. Looks like we triggered our vault again, which is awesome. We got another Kazarov, which is less than awesome. Let's go ahead and pop that. Get our wild cards. Very glad they have kind of rebalanced that. Alright, Sarah Angel is another callback, just a straight up reprint of the original. Don't think she is nearly as good now as she was back then, but in Limited she is an absolute bomb. And another Torgar. Yeah, not real excited about Torgar. Oh, I double clicked there. I don't even know what we got. My apologies. I might just slow that down in editing so that we can actually see what that was. Don't double click. Alright, Clifftop Retreat. I'll take the dual lands for sure. Thank you very much. Another Clifftop Retreat, sure. We got Steel Leaf Champion, so now we have the green creature of this cycle. For 3 green, we have an Elf Knight, that is a 5/4, which is an incredibly huge stat line, and also can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Now, Llanowar Elves is in this set also, so first turn Llanowar Elf, second turn Steel Leaf Champion seems pretty strong, and can honestly, with Llanowar Elf, lead to a lot of different ways to cast Ghalta Primal Hunger on turn 3 or 4, which is pretty scary. Flame of Keld, another saga that I just don't think is very good. The first chapter says discard your hand, so I'm out on that one. Second one is draw 2 cards. And the third is if a red source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player this turn, it deals that much damage plus 2 to that permanent or player instead. Yeah, I don't think the Flame of Keld is very good. Rare wildcards, though, are excellent. And next up, we have a Dreadshade, so now we have the black entry in the cycle. 3 black for a 3/3 shade. We can pay a black, and it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Just a straight-up bigger version of Nantuko Shade. A 4th Goblin Chain Whirler, so that's our playset of that. Hopefully we won't get a 5th. Another Joda, no thanks. Isolated Chapel, awesome. Black-white duel, we'll take it. Muldrotha. So, I had Muldrotha in a sealed pool in the pre-release, and it is ridiculous and limited. I don't know how good it's going to be in constructed, how easily your opponents are going to be able to kill it, but it is very, very powerful. For 3, a black, a green, and a blue, we have a 6/6 legendary creature. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. Yeah. It is as ridiculous as it sounds, though it does require you to untap with it to get any value from it. Otherwise, it's just going to eat a removal spell. And how often that's going to happen, I don't know. But Muldrotha is very powerful. We got a Jorah, Weatherlight Captain. For 2, a blue and a red, we have a 3/3 legendary human artificer. Whenever you cast a historic spell, draw a card. I don't know how good Jorah is, but her ability is quite powerful. And if you have a deck that's relying on historic spells, then she could do some stuff in that. This is another card that I'm going to reserve judgment on. I just don't know how good she's going to be. And we got another Shalai. We'll go with Shalai for the pronunciation. Another Song of Frailes. Traxos. Scourge of Krug. We heard his roar in the background there. For 4 mana, we have a 7/7 legendary artifact creature with Trample. It enters the battlefield tapped and doesn't untap during your untap step. Whenever you cast a historic spell, untap Traxos. So I can actually see Traxos perhaps seeing some play. There is also a low-cost artifact creature in this set that lets you untap an artifact on your instep, so that is sort of a little combo there. Again, too, if you're playing a deck with a high enough concentration of historic spells, 4-cost 7/7s are pretty strong, someone once told me. Another Jorah. The game seems to be doing repeats. Ooh, Mythic Rare Wildcard. If you want to repeat on that game, I will take it for sure. The first eruption, not real happy about that. Time of Ice, though, is something I could see getting played in a tempo deck. It's very good in a deck that's putting pressure on the opponent for 3 and a blue. Our first 2 chapters are tap, target creature, and opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Time of Ice. And then on the 3rd chapter, you return all tapped creatures to their owner's hand. Alright, Knight of Grace. There's the white version of the Black Knight throwback that we were talking about. And we've got Squee the Immortal, as opposed to Squee Goblin Nabob. For 1 and 2 red, we have a 2/1 legendary goblin. You may cast Squee the Immortal from your graveyard or from exile. So basically unkillable, unless you somehow lock him down with a pacifism type effect. He's going to be able to be recast no matter what else you do to him. Alright, wild cards for sure. I would not be upset if all the rest of our rares are rare and mythic wild cards. Lich's Mastery. Not super happy about that one though. Another Joda too. Come on, game. We've still yet to pull a Karn or a Mox Amber. Another Joshu Vest though. And another Naban. And a History of Benalia. Here's one that I'm happy to get. This is probably the best saga in the set. For 1 and 2 white, our first 2 chapters are create a 2/2 white Night Creature token with Vigilance, and then the 3rd chapter is Knight you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. This is already seeing play on Magic Online, in mid-range and even controlling decks. I think History of Benalia is going to have a very large impact on the format. Then we got the Mending of Dominaria, which is also a pretty powerful card. For 3 and 2 green, our first 2 chapters are put the top 2 cards of our library into our graveyard, then we may return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand, and the last chapter is return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, then shuffle your graveyard into your library. 5 mana's a lot for something that's not really affecting the board, at least until the 3rd chapter where you get a bunch of lands. But this is something that I could see being played some amount if the right deck pops up. Alright, another Traxos. And another Clifftop Retreat. The game wants us to have a playset of Clifftop Retreats, apparently. Then we got a Verdant Force, which is a reprint. For 5 and 3 green, we have a 7/7 Elemental. At the beginning of each upkeep, that's yours and your opponent's, create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token. This is kind of a combo with Tindershoot Dryad, though how good that's all going to be, who knows. Got another Vault. Get our wild cards. Beginning to accumulate quite the large collection of wild cards thanks to all these packs. Alright, another Naban. Wish you were something else, sir. And another Karn's Temporal Sundering. Song of Freyalise. I think this is a playset for us now. And then Jaya's Immolating Inferno. Can we get some more mythics, please? Would love to get a Teferi. Rare wild card, I'll certainly take it. Daring Archaeologist, sure. Merfolk Trickster's pretty good too. 2 mana for a 2/2 with Flash. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. It loses all abilities until end of turn. Triumph of Gerard is another saga I just don't think is going to see a ton of play. It's 2 cost. First 2 chapters are put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control with the greatest power, and then the last one is target creature you control with the greatest power gets flying for strike and lifelink until end of turn. And another Tashar. Sure. And a Sylvan Awakening. I am not sure how good this card is. It's a harkening back to Rude Awakening. Again, though, I'm just not sure if it's going to see much play. For 2 and a green, we have a Sorcery. Until your next turn, all lands you control become 2/2 elemental creature tokens with Reach, Indestructible, and Haste. They're still lands. Maybe as a 1 or 2 of in a ramp deck. If a ramp deck actually exists, where they have, 12 or 15 lands out, this could be a finisher. I don't know. Extra Song of Frailes there. Grand Warlord Rada. For 2, a red and a green, we have a 3/4 legendary elf warrior with haste. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control attack, add that much mana in any combination of red and or green. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So, essentially this guy is 3 mana because he gets to attack your first turn and generate you a mana. You just have to have 4 lands in play to cast him. I'm not sure how good he is. He seems fine, or she seems fine. They seem fine. Yeah. Another Torgar. Fungal Plot's a very good limited card. For 1 and a green, we have an enchantment. Pay a green and a generic. Exile a creature card from your graveyard. Create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token. Sacrifice 2 Sapperlings. You gain 2 life and draw a card. Very, very good limited card. And we got another Mending. Sure. Was that a red indication that I saw glowing there? Did it just let us know that this is a mythic? I think it did. Cool. I had not noticed that before. Oh, okay. So our 5th Shalai. What are we at? 50%? I think we saw a red glow again. Maybe I'm wrong. Nope, we did. Another mythic. So you can actually tell that the card is going to be a mythic before you even flip it. Multani Yavamaya's Avatar. There have been other incarnations of Multani in the past. Multani Morrow Sorcerer. For 4 and 2 green, we have a 0/0 legendary creature with Reach and Trample. Multani Yavamaya Avatar gets +1/+1 for each land you control and each land card in your graveyard. For 1 and a green, return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. Return Multani from your graveyard to your hand. Not sure about the constructed worthiness of it, but again, another card that is an absolute bomb in limited. And then another Antiquities War. Okay. So now I have to decide if I'm going to spend this last bit of gems on more packs. We do have gold. There are modes in the game now that you need to pay gold to enter, so I think we'll save our gold, but we'll go ahead and spend our gems. Alright, our last 9 packs. Let's get fingers crossed for some of the mythics that we haven't seen yet. Siege Gang Commander, sure. Happy to have that. The 6th Shalai, though, less than thrilled to get. Up to 65% on a vault opening, though. Rare wild card, yes, thank you very much. Can we get some more mythic wild cards? Some mythic of some sort. We saw the red glow. Another Verax Bladewing, sure. Not super thrilled, but not disappointed too awfully much. And I think that's our 4th Tashar. And we got another Dreadshade. It's funny how we're getting 3 and 4 of a lot of these cards, and not even one of some of the other rares. Torgar, sure. And Traxos, for example, we haven't got the blue cycle that the Shade and Chain Whirler and such are in, the Djinn. And last pack, and of course it has to be another Marwyn. Alrighty then, well, that is going to be it for this pack opening video. I also plan to have up a gameplay video. I don't know what deck that we're going to be running, it just depends on what I can do with what we opened, plus our wild cards, which should give us some flexibility, though we'll go through those very quickly, so I don't know how creative we're going to be able to be after this week when we use up all our wild cards. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, let me know in the comments, and by leaving a like below, it really does help tremendously. And of course, subscribe if you'd like to see more in the future. I have been Tevaron, and until next time, friends, be excellent to each other.